This is America in Space, a weekly news and information program on current events dealing with the space industry. From the Washington News Bureau, here is your host, Rick Potluck.
Reporting today for America in Space is Dawn Meyer from America's Space Coast.
NASA's Artemis program will be humanity's first return to the surface of the moon in nearly 50 years and will land the first astronauts at the lunar South Pole. Samuel Lawrence, planetary scientist and lead lunar exploration scientist, discusses the importance of mining on the moon and learning to, as he calls it, live off the land in order to establish a lunar colony and eventually a colony on Mars.
It's very difficult to make the case that anything you mine in space is ever going to come back to Earth. For now. That could change in the future, but for right now, the most near-term utility for lunar resources or any space resources, and the asteroids are chock full of useful things too, is for people in space. So the things we're interested in are oxygen. Oxygen is rocket propellant, the stuff you breathe. We're interested in the possible volatiles, which is hydroxyl OH negative, because that can be easily split off into oxygen and hydrogen, which is rocket fuel. Yes, the water can be easily converted to oxygen and hydrogen. Right. So. We care about these things because oxygen is not only stuff you breathe, but it's oxidizer for rocket fuel. The hydrogen could also be rocket fuel. And so, like I said, the near-term thing is going to be focusing on enabling and making human exploration more sustainable. And the reason why is that it takes roughly 6 times there's a 6-to-1 gear ratio for getting stuff to the moon. Is sort of the lingo, and that's because for every pound you have to take to the lunar surface, it takes roughly 6 pounds of fuel to get it there, give or take. Mm-hmm. So anything you can make on the lunar surface will eventually pay for itself, no matter how, and you always hear people talk about, launch prices will go down eventually. Sure, maybe. But that doesn't change the fact you're still going to take 6 times as much fuel to get something to the lunar surface. Mm-hmm. So the more you can make on the moon, the easier it will be to sustain a human presence there. And also you have to learn how to live off the land if you're ever going to do Mars sustainably too, because you're much, much farther away than going to Mars is a much bigger technological leap. And to really do it right, if you're going to do it in a way that doesn't eventually get canceled, you want to have a sustainable presence on the Martian surface. You'll have to learn how to live off the land and use local resources. So it's an important paradigm shift, and we can get started doing it on the moon. Some of the higher grade resources are only found in the equatorial regions of the moon. So we'll have to, like I said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So we want to try to establish a beachhead at the lunar South Pole and then eventually branch out to doing other missions to other places with gradually increasing capability. And that is why the moon is very interesting, because it's not just an interesting scientific target, it's an interesting exploration target. And we don't just want to go to the moon and stay there. Going to the moon actually gives you the capabilities you need to go anywhere you want in the solar system with any capability you might actually have.
Establishing a human presence on the moon is exciting indeed. I am looking forward to it as it unfolds. From Florida's Space Coast, this is Dawn Meyer for About Space Today.
Our Space Coast news editor, Dawn Meyer. And be sure to have your family and friends listen each Tuesday with me, David Denault, on About Space Today, and on Fridays, America in Space, with Rick Potluck from our Washington Bureau. And follow us on AboutSpace.today on Facebook. Well, spring has sprung, and I hope the daffodils are blooming where you are. And to all our friends in the U.S. and around the globe, thank you for listening. I'm David Denault, and this has been America in Space, a special edition.
Join us each week for news and information on America in Space.